Hello and welcome into season 2, episode 1, start of the new basketball season. Celtics 2, back at you again. I'm Jackson Agello. He's Dennis Riley. We're here to break down Boston Celtics basketball all season long. We've had a long but short off season in the sense of finally basketball starting at the normal time again, unlike last year where we had literally like a month and a half of an off season after COVID shortened things up, and we had NBA finals in August/October, which was banana land. But the NBA is back, and so is our big three lineup of topics today, where we break down the big three, just like the Celtics' former big three of topics that matter the most to the Celtics fans. First things first, big three topic number one, 2 overtime games to start this season. The Celtics have been pure cardiac adrenaline pumping madness to start the season.
Oh yeah, even that first game. I'll just start out with the first game against the Knicks. Like, I got out of work, was super excited to get back, watch some Celtics basketball, and they put us through that like freaking heart attack the whole game. I felt like my blood was pumping the entire time, and it was good to see that they had that intensity right from the beginning, because sometimes they could be a little lackluster from the start, but everyone was on cue that entire game. We had some rough moments, but awesome game. Wasn't even really that upset that we lost. It was super, super exciting for a first game back. Everyone played pretty solid, especially Jaylen Brown, except Tatum was a little off, but great game to start out the year, even with a loss. Especially, it was tough after losing Kemba and Fournier to see them be the first team to beat us. But good for them. Next game was a little rougher. I'll say that. We struggled a bit. Lost by a good amount.
4 games, so far this season for the Celtics. Record at 2-2. I would say of those 4 games, if you're a Celtics fan, you look back and there's only one where you're just abysmally upset, and that's that Raptors game.
Yep.
This Raptors team will not be good this season. Fred VanVleet's a good player. They have some good pieces, but they don't have a single guy who could be a top 3 player on a championship team right now, in my opinion. And the Celtics didn't just lose to them like in a nail biter on a slightly off night. No, they got their doors blown in 115-83. If you're going to be a top 3 seed in the East, those are the types of games you can't have as a statement to start the season, especially the first home game of the season. Because look, 3 of 4 on the road.
Siakam. Siakam too. That's huge.
3 of 4 to start the season on the road isn't always an easy challenge, especially when you're going up against some 2 at least quality teams. The Rockets, I think, are a little better than the horrible expectations people have set out for them, but they're still not a good team. They won't be a playoff team at all, but they're just a chippy, fiery young group. But you lose to the Knicks in a really thrilling game, and that's not underselling it. It was probably the most exciting game so far this season that you can live with. The Raptors loss, unacceptable, and then 2 games after that of solid efforts. They got out there and they got the job done. Against the Rockets, it wasn't always pretty. I think that's kind of how the Rockets are going to play this season, and a lot of teams are going to have to play that way against them. And the Hornets, they got the job done eventually. You know, the ball movement's great with the Hornets. Not a lot of defense either way. It's kind of hard in this sample size to judge exactly where this team stands, because we've seen some incredible offensive efforts, some dismal ones, and the defense has been, I would say, average at best so far.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. Like you said, the offense really hasn't been too much of the problem so far, but especially with Udoka coming in, he's more of a defensive-minded coach. I think it's going to take a little bit for everyone to mesh well on the court, and get that defensive structure down pat, and everyone to get on the same page that way. So not super worried about it, but I would like to see some low-scoring games from the opponents coming up. Especially, like you said, going back to the Raptors game, you can't be letting up that many points to a Raptors team. I think one of the bigger problems we've had is the perimeter defense. There's been a lot of wide open 3-point shots throughout all the games so far. which has been pretty rough to see because
And that's a point of emphasis for some
usually
of the
we're
teams they
solid.
played against so far.
Yeah,
So some of the teams they played against so far are looking to shoot the Knicks this season. You know, forget what you remember about the Knicks last year, where grinded out defense. They're still going to give you that heart and hustle, but that Knicks team wants to get and go now. They want to take the next level because, well, they have two guys from the Celtics to help them do that, and Kemba and Evan Fournier who can shoot it, quite frankly, and they can move the ball to get some of the guys who could shoot but weren't always in the best spots to in the past are able to do so now. So part of that got exposed there. Another thing that's been certainly an adventure is some end of regulation plays, which feature our big three topic. Number 2, Jayson Tatum. And obviously he's going to probably be featured in some sense or another as a big three topic throughout this season because he's in fact a part of whoever you want to categorize as the Celtics big three. I think Brown and Tatum are layups for that. You could make some arguments about who would fit into the theoretical third slot there. But Jayson Tatum, not any revelation here, is going to be the key that will make this Celtics team either a top 3 seed in the East or a bottom 6 seed in the East. And that's obvious so far in these games we've seen, because when we've seen the Celtics compete at a high level, guess who's been there? But one thing that I really wanted to see eliminated from his game specifically this season is exactly what happened against the Toronto Raptors. And it's what I really want to see him work on going forward, because in that game, he had 18 points, which doesn't sound like the worst night in the world. He shot 8 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. But the main thing that's a highlighter to me that has been a point of emphasis for him in the past, he was 0 for 1 from the free throw line. And I know this season, free throws are down across the league. I get that. That's the James Harden rule. It's the James Harden effect that's now probably going to overcorrect. But as a star player in the NBA, you can't just get to the line for one free throw. That is the way in the NBA. That is the way in the NBA that you get consistent scoring. Even when you're having an off night, you just get to the line.
Yeah.
Haven't
totally agree.
Again, aggressively small sample size, 4 games into the season, but that's a red flag. A red flag might be strong. Fine, orange flag from Jayson Tatum early on. That is something that we expected him to work on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, free throw is definitely down a bit this year, and that going to stay consistently down all year probably with the foul calling, which I'm glad about. A lot more.
It's a good correction. Like it's something that needed changing. It's just it'll probably, you'll look for fouls now this year that in the past couple years easily would have been called. Now won't as readily be called. Yeah,
no, exactly. And
which is better for the watchability and the runtime of the game. But
it goes by much quicker. Like even that Hornets game. Like it went by before regulation ended. I felt like that game flew. I think it was like a little under 2 hours even. Like it went by so fast. It was super fast paced. Wasn't much stoppage, but
even when that type of game is happening, super exciting, a lot better for the league as far as watchability. But no matter what, even though fouls are down aggressively, if you're having just an okay shot night, what you need to do as Jayson Tatum, as someone who needs to lead this team consistently night in and night out, is find other ways to win. The best teams out there are flexible. They can beat you in a couple different ways. In college football, in the last few seasons, we've seen Alabama really dominate. That's because, at least last year, not so much this year, they had a dominant defense and they had a fantastic offense. So if you had an offense that could run and gun with their defense, great. They could also do that. You need to be able to be flexible. And just like that, Jayson Tatum, if he wants to take the step to be a top 5 player in the league, he needs to be flexible in the ways in which he can score. And that doesn't mean just on a night when he's on, which when he's on, he's unguardable. At his size, he can create enough separation. And sometimes, depending on the defender, doesn't even need to create said separation to get his shot off. But there's going to be nights when no matter what, even if no one was in front of him, empty gym, we've all been there. It happens less to these guys, but we've all been there where you just can't hit anything. And on those nights, the way you counterbalance that is you still have an effect on the game by driving, getting to the rim, and getting foul calls and or creating opportunities for his teammates.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we saw that game one. He was super off, kept shooting, didn't drive the ball much, just like he said. And we saw it a little more against the Hornets. I mean, he had a spectacular game that game, but he went 7 for 7 from the line. That's solid. I mean, with the less amount of foul calls being called, that's solid. I'll take it, especially the way he was shooting the ball too. He's taking a lot of mid-range jumpers, which usually don't like to see in today's NBA, but dude's insane at shooting.
That is his like
fire.
That's a strength of his. That is
a
strength.
Oh yeah. He's an unbelievable shooter, and his threes first couple games a little off. Didn't shoot as much as well, but he went 50% last game, so that was huge. But I think the big part is going to be facilitating. Like we talked about this a little bit last year, but he's grown a lot more as a passer. He used to have not too much tunnel vision, but a little bit as a rookie. His assist numbers were not high at all, but he's had some solid passing games so far. I would say. I mean, he had 8 assists last game, which is always really good, even with the extra time added. But what I've noticed over the past couple of games, which is huge, is he's been getting double teamed a good amount, and he hasn't really panicked much. He's been able to find the right guy out of that, and usually when the defenders drop in on that person, who's actually been Rob Williams a lot, who he's passed to, and Rob's a great passer. You got a wide open look, which is great. So he's just got to continue building on his game that way. And as long as he stays as a good facilitator, he's going to be unstoppable, especially with the way he's shooting and with Jaylen Brown complimenting him, per usual.
And one thing that might help him with that facilitation comes down to big 3 topic number 3, which is the new additions to this team, starting with a new coach, as was the big surprise of the Celtics offseason. Brad Stevens out as coach, not out of the Celtics system and or management, but out specifically as coach. And in comes Ime Udoka. And, well, it's his job to help Tatum get into that spot and get into the role where he can help facilitate to these newcomers, to the teammates who also came into the fold, like Schroeder or Richardson or Big Al making his return.
Big Al. Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's going to be a solid coach. I was happy when we hired him. It's going to take a bit. I think I mentioned this earlier, to get all the defensive schemes, even some offensive schemes, to all work out, everyone to get on the same playbook that way. But he's been solid so far. And it seems like the guys love him. He had his post-game shower after we beat the Rockets in the locker room, and everyone was super hyped, throwing water all over him. But he seems like a really good players coach, and it seems like the guys like him a lot, which is going to be huge. And like you said, new additions, we got a few of them. Schroeder, he's got a great name, Dennis. But I think he's going to be a really solid point guard for the team. I was glad when he signed him. In the past, we had kind of a love-hate, mostly a hate relationship with him when he was on the Hawks. Back when IT was on the team, they didn't like each other, but he's a solid point guard. He even honestly shows some flashes of kind of how Rondo played back in the day a little bit.
Not at that level, but
yeah, not that level, but
he definitely got him on the cheap by comparison to what he could have had in LA.
Oh yeah, he definitely made the wrong move there, but I'm glad he did. But yeah, no, he's looked pretty solid so far. He had a really good last game against the Hornets, but the first few games it took him a little while. He made a couple boneheaded plays here and there, but I think he'll definitely be a high minute off the bench guy. I mean, he's been starting, but he's been great. And Al's been a little injury prone so far, but he looked super good against the Rockets. He looked like he was 3-4 years younger the way he was playing, moving out there, which was great to see. I didn't expect it. I mean, I expected him to be solid, but he looked really good out there. And he's going to put in some solid minutes for us this year, especially if Rob Williams gets injured, which hopefully doesn't happen, but given his passing.
More than
Could
likely.
for sure. Yeah.
And one thing I would say
wouldn't be
about
surprised.
Udoka is I think he has the chance to help this team mirror a team from their own division in the Knicks and what the Knicks were able to do last year, and or getting back even to what the Celtics did when they overachieved in the playoffs, going up against LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals and pushed that team to a Game 7. Defense was a big part of that. That was just totally absent last season. And so far this season, it's been so at best. It's 4 games in. It's hard to really make a statement on what Udoka has been able to implement so far, because again, 4 games into a season with very minimal preseason, the guys have only barely just begun to gel together and or learn said systems. But I think that could be a really great recipe for success, because you look what the Knicks were able to do and how far they were able to go, at least in the regular season, obviously bounced by the Hawks in the first round of the postseason. But you look at that regular season they were able to put together, and the Celtics have clearly more talent than that team. The Celtics clearly have more guys who are capable scorers. So, for example, if you were to put Jayson Tatum on that Knicks team last year, the Knicks probably make it out of the first round, because what happened to them is they didn't have guys who could finish shots late in game. The Celtics have that. Yeah. They just need to be able to get to those late in game scenarios where they're not getting their doors blown in because the game is just out of hand with too many points getting scored. They need to be able to compete. And again, you weren't able really to measure that last year in the playoffs because of the injuries that frankly just happened before the Celtics were even able to face the Nets. And then it was just, Jayson Tatum, please, dude, go crazy.
Please save us.
Yeah, and he did for a game, and it was an amazing performance in that game.
Great game.
But you can't rely on that consistently in the postseason. So
no,
I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to do defensively. I think that's going to be a big step for this team. But I'm a little skeptical. I'll say that. I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Especially with the new coach. It's always tough coming in and bringing everything together super fast. I'm a little skeptical as well. But just got to hope for the best, as we usually do. hope it works out by the end of the season and by playoff time. We've got a lot of solid. I mean, Rob's a very good presence down low. Dude can block any shot. I think he leads the league in blocks per game so far. Not that, I mean, small sample size, but Al also has 8 blocks so far. I saw that earlier today, which is huge. So been pretty solid there, but 3-point defending's gotta go a lot better, because Fournier, when he was on the Knicks, 3 straight threes in the first OT, I want to say, wasn't good, wasn't ideal. And then yesterday, to start off the game, Kelly Oubre went 5 for 5 to start off the game with threes, which you can't have happening, especially on the Hornets, who are a good shooting team. You don't want Kelly Oubre shooting, making 5 for 5. So it's all up from here, I hope.
And maybe it's up from here, but there was some red flags from the Celtics TikTok.
Ooh, that's a good one. We got some new teammates, so I couldn't think. But probably Romeo. I feel like Romeo probably poured his milk first. Probably Romeo.
I was to say something like that, it'd definitely be Romeo. He'd be like, oh crap, pour it in the bowl, and then he's like, oh, I forgot the cereal.
Smart. Marcus Smart, by far.
Bro, Bruno Fernando.
Ennis?
Probably Ennis. I think
Rod Williams, he's a weird dude.
You asked him the milk question?
You're a weird dude.
No, bro. It's smart. For sure. Milk before the cereal.
Romeo.
Ooh.
That's gotta be Grant. He just does weird things.
me. Do you do that?
Yeah, Cause if you pour the cereal before the milk, it like gets soggy as soon as the milk hit the bowl. But if you pour the milk first, you can like start eating the cereal as soon as you pour it. Sue me.
All right, cool. Yeah. So as you can see, guys, we got some interesting takes on the team about. I mean,
Psychos.
first off, who would put milk in? Yeah, who would put
Psychos.
milk in before their cereal? And Josh Richardson, I'm looking at you for admitting to it. All the other guys at least chose someone else, but don't admit to that.
That's
it's
a
tough, especially
firm
for a newcomer.
psycho play.
It's
That's
tough.
a firm psycho play. You're coming
Yeah,
into a new
big time.
franchise. Sociopaths do that. I think it's actually a cold hard fact that every serial killer ever has poured milk first. That's actually it's the first thing you learn when you try to audition for the FBI. I guess you don't really audition when you interview for the FBI. It's the first thing. First thing told.
Yeah. I mean, it says cereal in a serial killer's name. So, I mean,
if
it
I
only
meet
adds up.
somebody new, I ask them that question very early on because I need to know if they're the type of person who's going to murder me. I need to know that. And like, that makes me a little concerned about Josh Richardson. I'm, if he makes some open 3-pointers and or some slightly contested ones like he has been able to do in the past a couple of seasons ago for the 76ers, that can help calm that.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned. I have my concerns about him. But
big time concern.
Despite my concerns, in the end, my final thought this week is quite simple, Dennis, and it's just I'm happy basketball's back. I missed basketball. I missed throwing it on. I missed watching the ball go through the hoop. It's that simple, and I'm just happy to have it back. Happy to have something to talk about with the Celtics. I think it's going to be an interesting season for this team because outside of the top 2 seeds in the East, I think the East is very open. Yeah. I think that 3rd seed is just absolutely wide open. I think those top 2 seeds, as far as the pecking order,
Bucks,
and in
Nets,
reality, actually, I'll amend my statement. I think honestly, seeds 2 through 8 are up for grabs because the Nets, who knows what's going on with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And honestly, what that team is going to look like, they'll figure it out and they'll have a solid record. They'll obviously be in the playoffs comfortably, but I don't actually think they'll be the 2 seed. So in that sense, yes, 2 seed through 8 / well, I guess, the little play-in scenario up to 10, all up for grabs and really could go to a wide variety of teams. I think the Bucks are going to get that top seed as, injuries, unless they're injuries. I think that's going to happen. Outside of that, it's wide open.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's going to be an interesting season and super excited. I mean, they've been a fun team to watch over the first couple of games. Like we said earlier, 2 OT games. That doesn't happen much. So they've been a lot of fun to watch. We got a lot of newcomers like we talked about as well. So anything can happen. It's only been 4 games into the season, so it'll be cool to see how the team grows and develops as a whole, working together throughout the season. Hopefully, barring injuries, especially with the year we had last year with injuries and COVID problems, we hopefully can stay clear of those this year, because that was a mess. But it's gonna be a fun season overall. And I think a lot of the fun that we've seen through the team over these past few days is something we've kind of been missing, I feel like, through the past couple of years in the Brad Stevens era, which kind of moves into my final thought is ball movement. I think I had that maybe as my final thought 2 or 3 times last season, or mentioned it at some point, because I was missing all the valuable. Movement is always, yeah. It was ISO play all the time. We have Jayson Tatum, who's a great ISO player. Jaylen Brown as well. Can drive the ball on pretty much anybody. But I just missed having the ball movement out there. I mean, we hadn't seen it in a couple seasons. And throughout the first few games, I feel like everyone's been on the same page in that sense. Not super high assist numbers for everybody, but pretty solid assist numbers for everyone in the starting lineup at least. And it's just been great to watch, leading to a lot of wide open baskets, which I feel like we haven't been used to as well. And some open dunks. I don't know. I was just thinking about, we hadn't mentioned it before, and I feel like it's got to be mentioned. It's the Jaylen Brown dunk last night on Miles Bridges.
Bridges normally the one out there taking souls too.
Right. Yeah. And he got us earlier in the game, but jeez, that was crazy. That was definitely the exclamation point in that game. Also Rob Williams had a big one, but yeah, as long as they keep moving the ball, they bring their defense up, more intensity, I think we'll be okay.
And I think with that ball movement,
barring injuries.
true. Yeah. I think with that ball movement too, one thing to keep in mind is within an offense that has ball movement, that doesn't mean isolation plays get eliminated. Typically, if you're moving the ball well, that actually means you get your guys into spots that they're comfortable in for isolation play. For example, you get Jayson Tatum in that mid-post area with a defender back down where he's comfortable, and this floor spacing is conducive to him to get that one-on-one as opposed to a quick dribble and all of a sudden he's double teamed. When you space the ball, move it well, it gets everyone into better spots. Hopefully we'll see that continue. Hopefully we'll see the defensive intensity continue to ramp up and see the Celtics hold some teams to some lower scoring games, maybe hit the under a couple different times. We'll see. But no matter what, we'll be here back again to talk about it with you guys next week and throughout the season. That'll do it for season 2, episode 1 of Celtics Tube. Like, subscribe, rate, review, whatever you feel like doing. Just please do it down below. And we'll see you guys next week.
Do it.